Hi folks, coming to you live here from my coloring studio with, I think this is the second time that I've tried to do one of these live color picking sessions. So I don't want you to think about this as a coloring lesson. It's more me thinking out loud about how I pick Copic marker colors for projects. Now what we're doing here is not an actual project that I'm working on. Like, I don't have a digital stamp for it. It's just a reference photo. If you're a member of my Vanilla Arts chat group, which obviously you probably are since you're watching this, you notice that on Thursdays of every week, I post a really pretty photo that has lots of color in it, and I ask you what color you see. And it's kind of my attempt to get you started thinking more about photo references and more about how you pick color. Because honestly, when I start talking to students, the one thing that everybody gets hung up with is how to pick those colors. How do I know which colors to pick? It's the thing that people struggle with the most because, well, there are all these color blending trios, blending combinations that people can find online. But even then, you're staring at 3 or 4 red combinations and you might not know which one to use. So that color intuitiveness is kind of missing from a lot of people in the crafts world. So, this is my opportunity to help colorists pick up some of those color theory and color processes that you pick up in art school or in formal art training, where you're learning to draw and you're learning to paint. That kind of stuff is often missing from the background of somebody who started coloring with coloring books or coloring stamps for cards. There's a lot of talent out there in the coloring world. It's just kind of, you're unsure about what to do with things. So this is me thinking out loud about how I would choose colors. All right, that was a long and rambling answer. What we're looking at today is this great big raspberry photo, and I published this one as one of those coloring exercises a while back over on Facebook. And I asked, what color do you see? And what I noticed is a lot of people immediately said black. That was in their list of colors that they saw. And immediately I'm like, oh, where's the black? I don't quite see the black that you're seeing. So I kind of filed that mental note away that this was something that I wanted to talk about. All right, so if we're faced with a color reference like the raspberries here, what I want you to keep in mind, because a lot of people, like your standard thing is, I'm going to go look for blending combinations that are red. And then I'm going to look for a blending combination that's for something in the background. And then I'm going to grab a white gel pen to do all those pretty little highlights because, yeah, there's a lot of pretty little white highlights on those raspberries. Or are there? Yeah. So one of those background things that people don't always realize, and this is just the big lesson that I want you to get from today. Color is relative. Okay, so what does that mean? You've heard this is relative, that's relative. It's a common phrase in English. Color is relative, but you don't always really understand what relative means. And what that means is we see color based on the other colors that are around it. So the color of my skin is affected by the color of my shirt. The color of my shirt is affected, well, let me go this way. Yeah, the color of my shirt is affected by maybe that red that you see of my chair behind me or the room behind me. The color of the room is affected by the light. It's all relative. Everything gets affected by the quality of light coming in and the colors that are sitting right next to it. You have to keep that in mind because when you're choosing Copic markers, and this is the same theory that I apply with colored pencils as well, or even watercolor, you see the color red based on the lightest light in that photo of raspberries and the darkest dark. Okay? So the color of red and the flavor of the red is affected by the color of those white highlights, and it's affected by the deepest, darkest color way back there in the background. That deep, dark, kind of like in between those little crevices there. Color is relative. You're judging red based on the lightest light and the darkest dark. And here's where the problem comes in. Because when I posted that photo, everybody immediately jumped to the conclusion, I see white highlights and I see a black background. But are they really white and black? Because remember, color's relative. So if you're choosing the wrong lightest light and you're choosing the wrong darkest dark, then you're also seeing the color differently. All right, so let me switch over here to, hang on here, I have to look at my buttons. Oh, that's me. All right, let me switch over here. And yeah, okay, there. Now you're getting a shot of, this is just Illustrator. It's a program that I frequently use for preparing graphics and things for classes, but it also has this little handy tool. Let me make my face disappear up here for just a second, or maybe I can move my face. Yeah, there we go. Oh, moving my face. There's a little tool over there called an eyedropper tool that I'm going to be using to sample some of the colors in this photo. And I want to sample the darkest dark and the lightest light, because remember, color is relative. All right, so I'm just going to go over here with my little eyedropper tool, and I'm going to come up into the photo and sample some of these highlights. So, and I'm not totally sure if can you see my cursor? I hope so. I'm hitting this highlight here. Do you see me picking up white anywhere? Okay, I'm kind of moving it just a little bit, because if you move it, you can get other colors. That's about the lightest light. And I was like playing with this before the live stream here, trying to find the lightest light, which is why I picked here. Now right here, over here, there's a blowout spot, and this really truly is white, but that's a problem with the flash photography. But if I'm over here in some of these really bright areas, and I'm on this area that you would normally color with a white gel pen, I'm not picking up very many whites. Oh, there's a little bit of it. But wow, the vast majority of the color on these highlights is anything but white. So let me go over here and try and find one of those lighter colors. Where is it? There. If I'm looking at just that color, that's not white. It's more like maybe an R01, an ROO. It's not white. All right, but the average is more of this kind of weird salmony pink. And it's just time and time again, you go over these highlights that you would normally add with a white gel pen, and I'm not getting a white color. I'm getting variations of red and pink, and sometimes little dirty colors there. So if you're choosing white as your whitest white, you're skewing what the color is that we see in your project. All right, so now let me go over here and select the darker circle, because now I want to go fishing into the dark area where people were seeing black. And I'm sure if I go down over here into this deep area, yeah, that's kind of black in there. But the same person that chooses black for here is also going to want to use black in this area. And I'm not sure if it's showing up totally on camera here, but what I'm getting is not a true black. What I'm getting is kind of this really deep wine color. Yeah, there, that's, and if I go over here, I'm going to get that wine color again. It's not true black. Wow. Okay, so that's really not black. It's just, it's where you sample it from, but also when you assume that the lightest light is white and you assume that the darkest dark is black, you're not giving yourself, you're making your life hard because you're not giving yourself any boundaries. So if white is your lightest light and black is your darkest dark, you have essentially the whole entire color value range to choose from. Meanwhile, if I'm coloring and I'm doing my highlights in that kind of dusty pink color, and my darkest dark is this deep wine color, see how I've kind of set myself up with a smaller range of colors. So I can squeeze in a little fence line to give myself a security blanket there. I'm choosing from a smaller number of markers when I'm going from pink to deep wine than if I was going from pure white to pure black. So you're making life harder for yourself when you immediately grab a 110 or a 100, and then there are people who will debate which one should I use. They're both black, just use either one. But when you immediately start by coloring all those little background areas black, and then you pull out your white gel pen because that's the last thing you're going to do, it's like you got the whole world open to you. There's too many choices. So that's first step, is because the lightest light and the darkest dark set the tone for the red that you choose, give yourself some boundaries. Don't go pure white and don't go pure black. And if you need to, you can pull out one of those color picking apps and kind of do what I did here and fish around. And I would say remember there was that one spot over here that the highlight there, the one spot right here, that little blowout. And if you hit right there, you're going to get pure white. I wouldn't go searching definitively for the whitest white, a blowout spot. I would start taking some averages. Oops, I got the wrong one chosen. I would start taking some averages and find the lightest light average of colors and choose that one. I'm trying to give myself some boundaries so that I can limit my choices, because you got 358 colors to choose from over there. And sure, there's not as many reds and not as many pinks if you combine those in there, but still, it's a big wide world of color. And the more that you can give yourself some boundaries, some edges to play with, the easier your task is going to be. All right, so just to give you a little clue, I pulled my markers over a little bit closer. So this is not where I normally keep them, and then I threw a camera on them. But to be honest, I have to scoot my chair over a little bit to reach for those markers, which then puts me out of range of the microphone. So I'm probably not going to show you exactly what what I'm picking as I'm picking it. Checking over here for comments, just making sure that everybody's with me here. All right, so let's start picking some markers. Let me give you the overhead view. This is just my desk here. It's an IKEA countertop, and then this is just some scrap Express It. Once upon a time, I used to give away free digital stamps when I did a local class. So these are just old digital stamps that are on Express It cardstock. I don't throw anything away, so that's what I'm using here, is just some cardstock, some extra Express It cardstock, because you want to test on the paper that you intend to color on. So if you're coloring the project on Cryogen, you need to be testing on Cryogen, because the color will look different on different papers. Sometimes I color on Stonehenge white, sometimes I color on watercolor paper. A lot of the time it's on Cryogen. So you want to be sampling the colors on the actual paper, because the ink affects everything differently and the paper affects the blends. All right, so if I'm looking at my photo reference and I've got kind of that funky pink as my lightest light and the deep wine color as my darkest dark, it's probably a level 9 as my darkest dark. I'm just going to pull some markers here and kind of make a mess. I've got, what is this? This is V99. Just kind of looking at the color on the cap. I don't know for sure if the color of the ink is going to match that, which is why we do need to swatch it out. So I've got V99, I've got RV99. right now looking over into the brown area. And I don't really like, Copic makes a couple of dark brown, reddish browns, but none of them look dark enough that they would pass as a background color. I'm going to pull R89 because I know when I was sampling that wine color, a lot of people were probably screaming that they saw R89. RV69 is kind of a deep color. So let's just see what we've got here. I give them some samples. All right, so this is an RV69, and I'm immediately saying, yeah, that's wine colored, but I don't know that it's dark enough. Wait a minute, that's RV69. RV99. I kind of like that one. I'm going to put that off to the right. This is V99. That has a cooler flavor to it. This is a little warmer. It's got some more red to it. And that's a little cooler because it's in the violet family. Whoa, this is R89, not even remotely close to being dark enough. No. But it is the right red flavor. So now the wheels are kind of turning, and I'm wondering, can I put something underneath it? Because that's the other thing I noticed about these swatches is that, and it's typical of Express It, where Express It kind of sinks into the paper after a while, and so the color can be a little dry looking, I guess. And when we see that dryness, we assume that it just means the color is slightly lighter than it actually is. So the more layers you put down, like the richer the color will look. So if I put some more V99 over the top of it, it just has a richer look to it. It's just more saturated, wetter look. So what can I put underneath? Because I am kind of leaning towards that because it does feel like it fits with those other reds. All right, I'm just playing here. I don't rehearse this before I do this, obviously. Okay, so I've pulled out V28, and what does V28 look like underneath R89? It's a little darker. Honestly, I expected the V28 to look darker than it actually does. So here's it, the R89 on just the white paper, and here's, you can kind of now see the square of violet underneath there. So I need something darker than the V28 because I want something really strong. What if I tried a blue? Okay, I'm just going for the gold here. This is B39. And this is going to be dark. I'm kind of going over the colors so that you can see what the R89 looks like by itself, and then with the B39 underneath it, and I kind of like that. It's giving me a little bit of a black flavor, but let me just pull out a black marker and put it right next to that. This has a sophistication to it. It feels like blue under red. Meanwhile, that just kind of feels, it has a deader feel to it. I don't know if that's totally getting reflected. Let me turn up my little camera lights there. Maybe that helps a little bit, blows it out on me, but let's try that setting. I kind of like that blue underneath there. Honestly, that's where my instinct, this is what I would be doing, is I would be doing the background as B39 because I just really like the way this looks in person with then the R89 over the top of it, and I really like that. And I don't want to, like, I can go fishing around here for days and come up with other colors that would also work, because you've got 358 colors there to mix. There's going to be more than one mixture that works. Remember, the key to duplicating the feel of those raspberries isn't to duplicate the color exactly, it's to get the feel of it. And that's what we talked about in the very first episode of What Color Do I See, is that you don't need to match the color exactly, you just need to get something that's feeling very similar. So I'm kind of holding that up to the swatch that I'm trying to match it to, and I just really like the way this feels. It has an artistic feel to it, because when I look at it one way it looks blue, and when I look at it another way it's got a definite red feel to it. And there's another coat over the top of it, which is more like what would happen when I was blending something. So if I've got those, let me get just kind of, so if the raspberry is kind of this kind of shape here, what I would be doing is I would be coming along with my B39 and kind of flicking out into the background, and then I would be coming in with that red and building up the color, and it's a nice rich wet looking color because there's multiple layers on there. It's not just a single coat like that, and it's not streaky either. That's the other thing. When you just do a single layer of something, it's going to look streaky. You need to build up the color for the best effect. All right, so let's talk about those raspberries. Now, at this point, a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, well, she's going to go start looking for a light, medium, and a dark red. And that's really not how I work. What I want to do is I want to find the mid-range. I want to find a middle red that just has that instinctually right feel to it. So I want a red, and I want something in the mid-range. I want it to end in something between a 4 and a 7. I want that last number to be in the middle. Basically, I'm looking for the middle color that would normally be in your light, medium, and dark blending combination. A mid-range, well, it's not between a 4 and a 7, but let's try the R08 and just kind of sample it and see. That's very orange. This one is mid-range, R17. Again, very, very orange. These are very scarlet looking reds. I want something that's more of a true red. Well, I know the 24 is going to be too light, so let's try 27. That's closer. It's redder. Less orange. It's cooler. 35 has got a pink cast to it. Let's try 37. Well, that's not bad. $46. There we go. That's what I want. That's what I want right there. R46. You know it when you hit it. It's the classic kind of true red. Actually, I think it's called true red. No, it's called strong red. But this is that medium tone that I see in the raspberries. All right. So standard blending combination would be choose something in the same family, the R4, and then subtract 2, and you're like looking at R44. The problem is that the only other marker in the R40 series to do one of those natural blending combinations is R43, which is obnoxiously pink. Ugh, no. Which is why, frankly, I don't use a lot of natural blending combinations in my own work. I'll use them in classes because I know they blend pretty well for people, but it's not what I would normally do. And my favorite combination with R46 is R35. So let's just look at that blend here. Here's R46 into R35, and I just happen to love this. It's R35 is not pink like that 43 is. So here's the 43 and here's the 35. This just still feels red, and this blending combination feels red. So I'm liking that for my berries. I'm looking for something to put underneath the 46 as my underpaint. What about a V22? No, that's too light. The underpaint is always, you look at that last number of the color that you're trying to underpaint with. So this is R46, and the underpaint is always going to be a couple of digits less than that. So R40, or it won't be an R, but it's going to end with something a couple digits less than 6. 22 is too wimpy. 25 is probably too close to the 6, but let's see. That's not too bad. Ooh, I kind of like that. All right, let me run a blending combination just to see how this one is going to work. So this is V25, R46, and R35. And I kind of like that. So let me write that down so everybody can see it. This is V25 underpaint, R46, and R35. And that feels pretty good for, like, see that berry set right down there? I would totally use that there. It's kind of got a little bit of a cool flavor to it. Now notice up here, we are seeing a much brighter, warmer set of reds. And if you look, not all of those raspberries are cool. Some of them have some warmth to them. What will happen if I take something, I'm just grabbing here, if I want to warm up a red, I can put yellow or orange underneath it. So let's just sample here. What is this? This is YR15. Trying to get a color that's going to feel more like the red that we're seeing up there. And honestly, I just don't think that is a strong enough yellow underneath. Probably need something lighter. What is this? Y17. It's almost like the red is overpowering the yellow here. Oh, this is kind of cool. That feels warmer. What can I get with the Y08? Okay, in person that looks very, very warm. I think I might use that. So this is Y08 as an underpaint underneath the R46. And on camera, I'm looking at it up there, and you don't see a great amount of difference between those two. But in person, this kind of has a vibration to it. In real life, you can go ahead and try that. Just lay down a little bit of Y08 and then put the R46 over the top of it, and it's just kind of, it's got that same wow factor that I think this one has. And that doesn't always translate on camera, but dang, I like that. And I don't think I use Y08 much at all, so this is, it's a chance to pull out that marker. There's another method, though, that I use often for adding a glow. So let me just, well, I'm going to use this sample that we gave ourselves right over here, just to show you how I usually add the glow, because that's a lot of work for me to color that whole entire raspberry yellow first and then do the blending combination on top of it. That's just an extra marker. It's an extra chance, like, it's an extra layer of ink, which then reduces the amount of time or the amount of chances that you have to blend it smooth, because paper will only take so much ink. So if I'm wasting a whole layer on just yellow, to me that feels kind of risky. So the method that I usually use in my own coloring is that I grab a pencil to do some overpaint. These are my Prismacolors, and I want a translucent yellow, and that's going to be canary yellow. Some of the yellows are opaque. They have a lot of white pigment in them. I'm just going to pull out one that I know that is kind of opaque, and then the one that I plan to use eventually. All right, and remember, here's that black stripe that we did before. Just look what happens when I put canary yellow over the top of that black. I can still see a lot of the black shining through, but if I put, what is this, deco yellow over the top of it, look at how much black this filters out. Because this deco yellow has a lot of white in the core, it won't let as much of the base color shine through. In this case, I want something that lets a lot of the base color shine through, because I want to take this, remember this is that cool blending combination that I would be using on these corner berries here. But what if I colored these berries over here with the same blending combination and then overpainted them with this translucent yellow? And I need to look at it up there on camera. Yeah, this isn't really translating through. This is going to be one of those experiments that you have to run on your own to really see what it looks like in person. Because remember, the camera doesn't always pick up color accurately. But this is a base of V25 with R46 over the top of it, and then R35. And then I am giving it a very light coat of Prismacolor 916 Canary Yellow. And when I say a light coat, I do mean a light coat. So I'm going to duplicate exactly what I was doing there. It's called a lamb's wool stroke, which is all these little circles that overlap each other so much that it just looks like I'm buffing on color really lightly. And I'm using a very faint pressure. See how that barely even shows up on camera? Because I'm doing it so lightly. This is the way we color with colored pencils. Sure, you can do that, but that you can't erase it. You can't build up the color. I've mowed down the tooth of the paper. Instead, we go lightly, and if we want more yellow, we just do more lamb's wooling over the top of it. So I'm coming up here and I'm doing that same stroke. Look at how far away from the point I am. I'm not down here in writer's position where my pencil is almost perpendicular to the paper. I'm pulled back into coloring position where my pencil is very angled. It's an angled approach to the paper. It's harder to press hard. It gives you just this soft, light, delicate yellow overlayer. And that, to me, in person, really looks like those lighter, warmer berries. All right, so let's talk about highlight. And I'm going to have to come through here and give myself another swatch. I'm running out of room here. So I'm using that original blending combination that we decided to work with, the V25, R46, and then the R35, and I'm just giving it a healthy dose of the R35 so it starts to blend out. All right, so we talked about Amy doesn't use gel pens because white highlights are not white. So what would I choose? Well, just like I added that yellow overlayer, I prefer to do the highlights in pencil because the highlight isn't part of the berry. The highlight is light bouncing off of the berry. The berry doesn't change colors. It's still red underneath there. So because it's a lighting condition, I think it looks more natural when you use colored pencil over the top. And I know this is one of those situations, I don't even have my white. Let me grab it over here. A lot of people want to use, because you're just programmed to think of highlights as white. So you want to use that white pencil. I'm going to sharpen my pencil here. You you want to put that highlight in white over the top of it. The problem is that Prismacolor white is a cool white. So if I go and just softly do that lamb's wooling technique over the top, I'm getting the effect that you kind of get. There's that nice highlight. It's soft and it's subtle, but it's also distinctly cooler. And when I go to put it over the top of that yellow area, it might look a little bluish. So when my object is a warm colored object, so the warm colors are the reddish violet, the magentas, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and even into the greens. So like chartreuse is a warm green, Kelly is usually a warm green. When I'm doing a warm color, I tend to use cream instead of white because it's a yellowish white. I know this isn't going to read as blue, and that's the mistake that a lot of people make, is they use that Prismacolor white and then you take a photograph of your project to put it online and it looks like you've got light blue highlights on things. It's because the Prismacolor Premier White, it's picking up the coolness and kind of feeding that to the camera. So here's the cream, a highlight of the cream right next to the highlight of the white. So let me differentiate those for you. This one is white and this one is cream. And you can barely tell the difference, but in some lighting circumstances, or if I was doing a really big area, you would definitely notice that the cream has a yellow flavor to it and the white has a bluish cast to it. So I'm going to be doing my raspberry highlights in cream. White I usually reserve for cool colored objects. So if I'm doing a black cherry or if I'm doing a blueberry, I'm definitely pulling out the white. I don't want something looking like a yellow highlight on it. But if it's a warm colored object, I tend to go towards cream, which is why I almost always highlight flowers in cream rather than white, because most flowers kind of tend to fall in the warm half of the color wheel. All right, so I've got a lot of mess on my page here. What am I using for the raspberry? In the background, instead of black, I've got B39. And I'm going to base coat the background in B39. And then I'm going over the top of it with a true red, this R89. And my goal is to make this nice black color right there. So that's my background. That's what I'm choosing. You can choose a slightly different blue. Maybe you can find a purple that works. Maybe you choose a different red because you don't own R89. I would shoot for try R59, try R39. Those are going to work. You're going to have to find your unique blend, but you're looking for this pseudo black. It's not really black. It's got a reddish, bluish flavor to it. So that's my background there. My blending combination is going to be V25 with R46 over the top of it, and then I'm smoothing it all out with R35. I'm using true reds with a violet underpaint, and that's going to give me very reddish looking raspberries. So let me write that down for you. V25 and R46 and R35. And that's my blending combination. And then my turning, I'm going to use a little bit of overpaint with the canary yellow, because some of those raspberries are warm. They're distinctly warmed by the sun. So I'm using a nice soft layer of Prismacolor 916 over the top of them. And then my highlight color is cream. PC 914. So this is the highlight and this is the warmth. And because I do a lot of that pushing technique, you can't go wrong with gotta grab my mug of pencils here. I'm looking for indigo. Yep, here we go. All right, so I tend to use two different pushing colors. Pushing, the highlight pulls things closer, and the push color kind of adds a little bit more shade to it. So I use a lot of indigo pushes. I'm going to use some indigo, and I'm probably going to use some of this purple color. So what we've got here is PC901. That's indigo. And then the purple here, the Prismacolor makes a dark purple, but it's kind of a flaky pencil. It can turn pink if you come in contact with the cream. It can turn hot pink on you. So instead I substitute Derwent Lightfast and the color name is purple. And it's a duplicate of Prismacolor dark purple. It just doesn't turn pink in weird circumstances. So there's what I'm using for those raspberries. I'm creating a pseudo black, not a true black, because remember, color is relative. So you have to be careful about choosing your darkest darks and choosing your lightest lights so that you're not skewing the values that you use. So I'm choosing something that is almost black but still has a definite red flavor to it. I was shooting for that deep wine. And then my blending combination has that underpaint of the violet with two reds on top of it. I'm tinting or overpainting some of those raspberries with a yellow to give them a nice amount of warmth. And then the highlight on the berries I'm going to create with Prismacolor 914. That's the highlight. That's what the H is there for. And then if I need to start shaping those berries and making them nice and rounded, my pushing colors are indigo and Derwent Lightfast Purple. And remember, the Derwent Lightfast Purple they don't have numbers to them. They only have the color name. So you could buy this one open stock, and if you're not a Prismacolor person, you can buy the Prismacolors open stock if you're just looking for these universal pencils that I have in almost all of my projects. They're transparent colors, so they just do the pushing really, really well. You can bury me, put these in my coffin with me because I'm going to need them in the afterlife. I just use them constantly on everything. And they just add a little bit of darkness, a little bit of deepness over the top. So like for the center of some of those berries, I'm going to be carving that deep area, like down in the hole of some of those berries. I'm going to be pushing that deeper with either the Prismacolor Indigo or the Derwent Lightfast Purple. And it just depends on, like, I decide which one I'm using based on as I'm coloring. Like if I start to lay down one, remember we're going really, really light. And if I lay down one and I say, oh, that looks too warm, the dark purple, then I switch to the indigo. And if I lay it down and oh, that's too cool, then I switch to the dark purple. I'm just looking at the temperature. They're both creating a very similar push, a sense of distance, but they're just two different temperatures. Honestly, I end up using the purple on red more. The blue might be a little bit strong, so my inclination is that I probably would end up using the purple here more than the indigo. But you never know. Sometimes you need an extra push, and I'll use both of them. So there we go. That's our short little live stream today. Just me thinking out loud about what markers and which pencils I would pick to color those raspberries. I hope you learned something. We can talk about this over on the chat group here at Facebook. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you again on another Wednesday for another What Color Do You See? All right, bye.